Hi everyone, I'm here with Fee and Ollie today to discuss World Wide Web Day. So to start off with some introductions, I'm Kay, I'm MD of Drum. For those who need a visual description of myself, I am a white female with a blonde asymmetrical haircut, and I'm currently wearing a light green top with a blue necklace. Fee?
Hi, I am Fi. I'm a UX UI designer at Drum. I am a Southeast Asian female, having shoulder length curly hair and currently wearing a gray jumper.
Hi, I'm Oli. I'm a very middle-aged man with glasses, white, and I have an orange hoodie on and shorts. But you obviously don't see those. So nice to meet you all.
So the 1st of August sees World Wide Web Day, which is a nod to the incredible impact the internet has had on our lives. So the first web page launched in 1991, and today there are over 1 billion websites, with close to 4 million websites created every day. So firstly, I just wanted to ask your thoughts on what are some of the challenges facing users when there's such a wealth of information that can be gathered so easily and quickly from the internet. Some of it may be fake news, real news. There's clearly a decision fatigue with having kind of too much content. Fee, what are your thoughts?
I feel like there are two sides of the World Wide Web. Like, for example, like when I start learning, I could get anything, like literally anything from A to Z. I could learn like something new, like easily. But also on the other side, like there are also so many fake news. And I know some people that are like, they literally believe in those without fact checking them. Um, there is no filter. I think that's the problem because like everybody could put whatever they believe in. It doesn't matter if it's good, is it bad, and like for underage children as well, they could just access it easily if the parent doesn't really have any control over their screen time or their devices. So I think it's a bit tricky for me.
Ollie, but you're probably coming at it more from a marketing perspective. But what do you think are some of the challenges where there's so much information that can be easily accessed online?
I suppose from a as a marketer and as a person, I have two very conflicting heads. I guess from a marketer, it's brilliant that you have all these great things that people can search for your product or your service or whatever it is, and you can get in front of so many people. I think it's brilliant that you can see so much information, as Fee said. I kind of personally now I kind of feel like there's almost like a fatigue now of there's too much info, and there's too much. I personally very much, I live in a very small town, and I personally I rather buy local, because like massive websites that take over is actually really detrimental to, in my opinion, to the world. And I know that's a bit thing to say, but the small shops that lived and survived many years ago just struggle. And the same with info. I just think people just end up spending so much time on their phones, and you end up kind of looking for info for info's sake. Not that you actually need to look for something, you're just addicted to social media, and it's not really needed. So it's gone too far now, I think. So
Yeah, there's good and bad, isn't there, in everything, and the internet is a classic example. So let's give it its dues because this is World Wide Web Day, and we want to look at the positive impact it's had. So if we look at some of the good examples of using the internet, you only need to really remember COVID to see how the digital age helped everyone to not feel so isolated and lonely, and still be able to kind of connect with people. And COVID had a massive shift to people working from home, which obviously is a fantastic thing, but can only be done obviously with the World Wide Web. Um, and naturally, a lot of education went online during COVID, and it worked. Admittedly, not as good as perhaps face to face would be, but it does show that you can learn and educate yourself on so much when you've got all that information at your fingertips. So, what Ollie? Let's start with you. What would you say is the kind of biggest, the single-handedly best thing about the internet? I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think, like you say, it's brilliant that you can keep people you can keep closest people together. It's easier to connect to people. The fact that it's so easy for me now to order a prescription, or that's just done seamlessly, which wouldn't have been done years ago. It would have been so much more difficult. All these things is all web based, and it's done seamlessly, that we absolutely take for granted, that we don't even, it's not even thought about, which I think is absolutely brilliant. So 100% excellent. The fact that we can develop our skills easily, as you said, the education, the fact that we can, if we do have an issue, we can search for it. And when I was a young lad, in college, they said about Google starting, and I was like, why do you need a search engine for? That's a stupid idea. And I felt, yeah, obviously I've turned out to a right genius on that one, but it is a brilliant thing. And
What about you, Fee? Because obviously, from a personal perspective, with family abroad, I'm sure that's probably one of your top things with the internet.
Yeah, I feel like connectivity is number one. I remember my uncle left to work like in the other city when I was 5, and we didn't hear from him for 5 years. But then I moved to Canada, and I could still like call my parents like every week, like not really face to face, but I could see them, could see what's going on back home. And now as well, I could call them every 2 days and to see how they're doing. Also, I feel like the opportunity to learn from it as well. If you could find a reliable resources, you could learn. I'm learning currently like a Korean language. There is a whole website. It's very good. Like it teach you from the alphabet up to like the most complex tenses. So I guess that is the most benefit that I got from the internet, is to continue having connection with my family when they're so far away, and also like learning something new. And my uni as well is online master's degree.
Yeah, you go back perhaps 20, 30 years, you move to a different country. The only time really you would have interaction, like you say, it's not face to face, but there's still that video element. That wouldn't have been heard of, and the only time you would hear from people is when they went home to visit. So I think hands down we're all kind of saying that connection part, whether that's through family, friends, colleagues, whatever that may be, or even the community, like Ollie mentioned. It's just about bringing people together as much as it can. I mean, I think the problem is as our hunger for digital content increases, I think digital agencies and marketers are in a rush to develop something new all the time, and people just put inaccessible content online, causing, in my opinion, a much bigger divide in society. And people just keep churning out huge carbon guzzling content online every single day, which is having an impact to the planet. So if I was asked what I thought of the internet now, I think it would be of slight apprehension, a dislike, because we continue to add to that social divide and we continue to harm by emitting carbon, just to use the latest marketing trend. So let's flip it. What are the bad examples of the internet? Do you want to start, Fee?
I actually have one. I think it's the social media is one of, it's good, but it's also, it has the worst part of it. Like TikTok is super stimulating when you're so young, like you're like 10 or something, you see it and your friend use it all the time, and then you feel like, oh, I want to see more and more, but then all of the information there's actually no filter. You could get anything bad, and there are so many cases back from where I am in Indonesia that like they are influenced by this and they did something really bad to their friend, or like they did some like criminalities and stuff. So yeah, it, like as you said, like there is a good and bad side of everything, but I just hope that like the family and their like teacher and their closest friend could like build like a society that could only use the good part of the internet rather than the bad one. Like I don't know how would it work, like like how would it work on the field, but like it will be nice to have like platform for them to know how to use like only the good side of the internet, how to learn something new rather than doing a challenge that will make them in a dangerous situation. So yeah, I think that's all.
What about you, Ollie?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's lots. I think, and like Fee said, social media, I think, is a big one. I think it gives people the opportunity to be not themselves, maybe. If you look into Facebook and things like that, you can create a completely fake profile, and you can say literally whatever you like and have literally no repercussions and act like nothing's happened. That's fine, and that seems to be like an almost like a standard behavior now, and that's what the internet's become. Really, if you're in a group, you ask like a simple question like, where's a good place to buy a pair of trainers, and you get like 4 million responses like, well, why don't you look on Google, or why don't you? And and that's this response of like everyone's trying to be funny, or everyone's got this, wants to be rude, or and that's the bad side of it, because it is no need for it, and it's yeah, it just I find it quite upsetting, really, because it's terrible. I find content becomes increasingly untrustworthy when you search for something. Say, for example, if you have you're trying to fix something on your phone or your computer, or an illness or something like that, you know what is that actually correct, or you end up having to search multiple times, and it feels like as the internet's got bigger, it just feels like the actual quality is just being absolutely diluted to the point that it's harder just to really make any sense of it. So those are the main things, and safety, I think.
Yeah, you're right.
The main dark web, things like that, obviously is a massive concern, and and those are really massive, big subjects to think about. But yeah, they filter onto everyday life. It's scary, I think. So
Yeah, I think I think for me, the fact that we know that 96% of websites are inaccessible, it's like people just want to throw content out there, and like you say, the trust isn't there, with anything, and with the brands. So another thing, obviously, from a sustainability perspective, is the internet is already on par with the aviation industry in terms of its carbon footprint, which is quite a big statistic, really. But with kind of deep fakes, it is really, really hard. And I think you mentioned earlier, I think it was you, Ollie, about phone addiction. That's a thing, and if you said someone's going to be addicted to their phone and that would cause depression or mental health issues, yeah, you just wouldn't believe it. A bit like someone saying, "Oh, I'm going to start Google,"
Yeah, exactly.
But actually, that is 100% the reality today. And I think your point about the people kind of commenting, the internet is a scary place, and in my opinion, and a breeding ground sometimes for negativity and trolls and bullies. And that is the ugly side of the internet. Social media networks, in my opinion, are no longer sociable at all, but faceless, offensive comments made, and trolling is now, in my opinion, commonplace. And news in general is filled with so much doom and gloom, fake news and propaganda, that I do genuinely wonder how this affects people's mental health, and especially for kids. I worry about people's mental health, full stop. But I've talked about it before, but having a young child who got to the age of having his first mobile phone was scary, because I'm opening up this world to some really ugly sides. Have you got any more thoughts, either of you?
I think the other, I suppose sad aspect, I suppose, from a marketing point of view, is that, when we said about content and things like that, is that this is a kind of driven by Google, because everyone wants to be kind of like top of the rankings, because that's, you get the most traffic to your site, and then that means you get the most money and potential, anyway, most visits. And historically, a lot of that's based around getting as much content onto your site, because that would generally produce the most theoretical amount of traffic. So there's always been this produce as much content as possible, regardless of whether it's crap or not. It's just, let's produce it. And yeah, Google's probably slowly kind of like that. Actually, now it needs to be good content, but it's a bit too late now, because it's all being produced now, and it's already in people's mindset of, right, we need content. Right, everybody gets right in this, an hour AI. You've got these websites that can produce. You sign up and you can have 30 blogs a month for. You just type in a keyword and it comes out with these. That's brilliant. That's great. But the actual quality is not. It's not the same. And how's that going to add to the long-term quality of the web generally, and everything else that adds overall?
Like I said, there's 4 million websites launching every single day, which is quite crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you think about it, because that quality isn't there. It can't be at the pace in which we're kind of going. It's just being churned out for kind of the sake of it. And if you compare, I don't know, the physical world and the kind of digital world, someone wouldn't just keep sending out letters in the post, for example, to you. That just wouldn't happen, But yeah, online, people keep generating these blogs and these websites and then adding you to email lists and spamming you left, right, and center. And it's just too much. It really is just a case of I don't know the answer, and I don't think any of us can know the answer or will be able to fix it. But there kind of has to be some sort of, I suppose, in a way, validation of what's happening and holding people to account a little bit more about the content that they're creating. What about you, Fee?
Speaking of the marketing emails, I always feel bad when I see my email. Like, I categorize them to like promotion and socials and the primary. But then even with that, like I'm just questioning. They're usually, because they usually have images in it, like just to show their products and stuff. And then my question is like, how many memories just for me one person email contains? And then I keep deleting it, but then they keep coming. Like in a day, I got like 50. I unsubscribed from them all, but sometimes the unsubscribe button didn't work either. I did it 3-5 times, and then they keep sending me email, and I'm just to the point that I just don't know what to do anymore. I just don't want to get this. I don't want to like spend my digital storage for this nonsense anymore. But it's just this reality of every time you purchase something online, they put you in the newsletter, and the form, usually the UX is like with the very bad pattern. You didn't know that you signed up for it, or they didn't have the option to opt it out as well. So it's all like going back to accessibility again, I guess. Like you should, like when you order something online or you need something online, the unsubscribe, like I don't want to receive any newsletter from you, should be like there, so we don't like receive this email that are also unsustainable for the digital world. So yeah, it's all just going round and round together. And I'm like, well, we're speaking, I deleted my promotion tab on my Gmail yesterday, and today I already got 68 for today's one.
It's just constant carbon guzzling rubbish, most of it, and it's just having an impact on people, but also the planet. But I think one thing I want to kind of finish on is, I think whilst digital agencies, freelancers, developers, marketers, anyone in our sector doesn't embrace accessibility and digital sustainability, the internet is becoming more and more it's becoming more and more damaging, I believe, to society. So do you believe that the internet is outpacing society now? Fee?
Yep, I do think so. Because everyone could work from home. Like literally, like you have nothing to say for the matter. You just created something that might waste food just because it's fun, and everything else, like all of this bad thing, like the challenges that might harm you and stuff. I just wish like people are more mindful before they create a content. Like they should know, like, oh, will this benefit anyone? Do I send a message that will benefit someone, or am I just putting more trust into the internet? Because it's a very valuable resource, I think, the internet, to begin with. But nowadays it's because how easy it is to create content. And like I'll say like I'm bamboozled by how many contents that I could find opening like TikTok or Instagram for 1 minute. I'll say like I have one good content or like digital accessibility or something that I'm interested in, but 99% of it is just rubbish.
Yeah. Ollie, I kind of feel personally that we're outpacing society from a kind of ageism perspective, and that like everyone, all marketers and designers and developers, that's include everyone in this, is designing for the younger generation. Like you have to know how to use the very latest thing, otherwise you're in my opinion being excluded. But you mentioned earlier about prescriptions being online, all those things like the doctors, GPs, they're all going online, which is all great. But what about the generation who haven't grown up with the internet and haven't been at the ridiculous pace that we've gone? If you compare the internet to 20 years ago to what it is now, it's a completely different beast. So how can someone who's 50, 60, 70, who has to do things online because banks are shutting, XYZ, how can they be kind of included, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that comes down to, is that a technical, is that actually a digital question, or is that a community question in many senses? Because it kind of feels like, because they are all, sadly soon, what I will be, that generation, as it feels like next week. But is it a market that people will actually generate a digital interaction for? I don't think they will. I think it's kind of like you're stuck with it kind of thing. I think there needs to be a lot more done from a community aspect, where there are some dotted around. I mean, locally they used to do a little workshop that people could come down and have, you don't know how to do something, ask about how to run your phone or things. And I know banks have talked about doing it, but that seems to have gone a little bit quiet, and that seems like a bit of a fad. And really, for me, and as a person of, I suppose, of disability, it doesn't feel like it's a genuine commitment. It kind of feels like it's a tick box. We better make some sort of effort to shut people up, and so we do the absolute bare minimum, and then as soon as people shut up, we're just not do anything. And that's how it feels. So being honest with you, can I imagine it getting any better? Or no, I don't think they will. I don't think it'd get anything. I'm 47. I might look about 72, but I still struggle daily with things like that, of how to work out how to do things. I'm not expecting anything to crop up from a regional or a government or any form of, take this course or phone this number or join any form of support to figure out how to use my MacBook, because I just don't think it's going to happen, sadly.
The world has just gone digital first. It's that simple. It's digital first. You either work it out or no, literally just work it out or don't do it. It's a case of people just choosing. And I understand from, like, let's say banking or doctors as just two examples, because they just came up as ways that things are quicker and probably easier for them to run as an organization. But they're removing that user experience part from it and just looking at how to get it online to make their life easier, without thinking about the impact of kind of what that has on society. I think, Fee, you were wanting to say something, so I'll go for it.
So there's one thing that sometimes developer or designer forgot. They always think like they would know how to use this. There's this one thing. It's just a button. They would know how to use this. They would understand this. But will they? Is normal just one? Is there only one description of normal? No. Everybody has their own normal. My normal, Oli's normal, your normal. Like, it's all different. And assuming that they would know your market would know what you think. I think that is completely wrong way to approach any system ever. Also, for the elderly, I think we could create something that is easy enough, like it's very clear, but it needs a lot of like research. It needs a lot of like accessibility checks from start to finish. Also, Oli mentioned that when like older people having like a new smartphone, how to use them. I know there is a voluntary near where I live, where like, you know, if you got a new kind of devices you could bring to the library, and then there will be a volunteer that will help you. But that's all voluntary based. There is no like for the from the government or something that actually have that, so everyone can have the same access to every services that are out there for them.
But
Especially
does that come down to the government, or does it come back to the phone manufacturers or, you know, network providers who sell that phone to then make sure that they've got the tools they need to be able to use it, you know?
yeah.
Well, for me, it should be government led. I think the manufacturers should pay or donate or however it may be. So I think it's a goodwill thing. My mum, we brought her a new Samsung because my brother felt that it was a good idea because my niece has one. Bless her, she's so confused with it, and it's sad because it shouldn't be so hard for someone to just use a device that's so important to someone. That's because everything's now on your phone. It's not just a gimmick, or it's not like it was a few years ago. A smartphone was just one of those, you know.
More than a few, Ollie.
Yeah, years is not good for me. But you know what I mean. But now it's absolutely vital that you have your phone and you know what to do with it and how it operates. And so I think, I think the government should, you know, should organise this. They have the opportunity to organise everything for around the country, and you know Apple and who's the other one? The other
Android, Google.
Android should pay, really, if I'm honest with you. And I think but the reality is that's how I suppose, you know, when something when like TikTok, they would always make something for that generation, don't they? And they kind of generation kind of down, if that makes sense. They won't generate up, if that makes sense. And that the generation is left behind is that's it kind of thing. It's just unfortunate, but
yeah. So, you know, we have to say that World Wide Web Day does need a massive thanks, because, you know, without the internet, we wouldn't be doing the job we're doing. You know, we wouldn't be talking to each other right now and even having this discussion. So there's so much fantastic stuff. But from the first web page being built 33 years ago to now, the world has changed a lot, and it is going at a ridiculously fast pace. And there's time, I think, just to stop a little bit, take a bit of a step back, and governments to look at this ugly trolling side, the kind of mental health side, the divide in society from accessibility and from perhaps the aging population. Time to think about what we're doing to the planet by just continually on this cycle that's just not slowing down. So thank you very much for your time, both of you. It was lovely to chat.
and you.
Thank you.